By the early 21st century, increasingly sophisticated visual effects had made comic book adaptations feel much more like their source material. Here is an attempt to update one of Marvel's biggest characters, literally, that in parts may look a little too much like the source material. And at other times it tries to be an art film.
It was like desert flowers. Her favorite perfume.
He's big, he's green, he's psychologically damaged and complex. He's mean, he's keen. Hulk.
Oh, am I?
We started by reviewing the Incredible Hulk television series beginning in the late 70s and the follow-up TV movies ending in the early 1990s. The characters of Dr. Bana and the Incredible Hulk were away from live-action productions for over a decade, while people figured out what they could and couldn't do with the advancements in VFX. Photorealistic characters like Jar Jar Binks showed just how well audiences would accept an all-digital character. Marvel, having had a tough few years, had started to right itself by licensing out its properties to major studios, and in the early 2000s, various Marvel characters popped up in their own movies. New Line Cinema had mined Blade, Fox had X-Men, Daredevil and Elektra, while Sony had done gangbusters with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie in 2002. Universal, who'd previously made the Hulk TV series, wanted in. Okay, that's not exactly how it happened. Universal didn't see Sam Raimi's Spider-Man sucking up more cash than a payroll accident at a Hoover factory and suddenly decide, hey, let's greenlight this Hulk movie for next summer.
I really wish that I could believe you.
It only seems like that's how things happen.
But how?
These movies, particularly the first of a potential franchise, can often take a very long time to get going. There's often many years of development needed, draft upon draft of the script, various teams of directors and screenwriters, all putting in a massive effort to definitively screw up a film.
There's nothing to talk about.
There were efforts to make a Hulk feature film going back to the time of the final Bill Bixby telemovies in the early 90s, and a film was almost made in the late 90s, but a ballooning budget meant the studio put on the brakes. More drafts, more rewrites, more writers. Director Ang Lee came on board the project in 2001, and Hulk finally started to gain momentum. Hulk, released in 2003, would be an adaptation of the source comic, leaning on some characters and situations there. But even then, it still wants to cherry-pick a few things from Kenneth Johnson's television series.
Can you remember anything?
Hulk tells a story, or more accurately, obscures a story that takes a while to unfold, and when it does, it's very wrinkled. Does it ever make complete sense to the viewer?
Don't know.
We begin with images of a scientist experimenting with animals in a film where we see the results of a director experimenting with every filter, special effect and transition that came standard with the video editing software. It's possible that seeing Ang Lee's edits of a kid's birthday party video would sure be a trip. Scientist Bruce Krenzler is working at a lab researching gamma rays, which sounds cool and all, but he's also having to work with his ex, Betty Ross. Oh my, how awkward.
Can I just ask, were you wearing the helmet while she dumped you?
Betty's other ex, Glenn Talbot, is sniffing around. So awkward. Talbot wants the pair of scientists to work at his company on making self-healing super soldiers, which is a bit like making soldiers with built-in puncture repair kits. Betty's distant dad is General Thaddeus Ross, who's a bit suspicious of this Krenzler guy since he knows things.
Right now, I'm not at liberty to...
Not at liberty to disclose it to me, right?
An accident in the lab sees Bruce getting a whacking great dose of gamma radiation. Whacking great is pretty high on the gamma radiation dosage chart. Straight after the accident, Bruce feels fantastic.
I'm 100%. More.
But when frustrated, aggravated or upset, he turns into a giant green rage monster, tearing up anything in his way. Talbot wants to study the creature to discover his secrets of healing.
Bad science, maybe. But personally gratifying.
But for Talbot, things don't go so well. In the background of all of this, a mysterious, disheveled man has been lurking nearby, who, to cut a long and actually pretty dull story short, turns out to be Bruce's real father, David Banner. Bruce Banner has some blocked memories. Apparently he and Betty grew up in the same desert town, while Ross Sr. was the one that had Banner Sr. locked up for his unethical experiments. Oh, and David Banner accidentally killed Bruce's mother during an argument.
I will isolate it and treat it myself. I'll remove it and I'll kill it before it does any real harm.
Hulk goes on a journey to discover himself. Actually, no, he just wrecks things, which is precisely what a lot of people want from a Hulk story. Banner Sr.'s work was trying to improve himself, somehow passed on aspects of his work to Bruce, and now having acquired the ability to merge with solid matter, wants something from his son.
I'll go. You just watch me go.
Then all of this happens, which I'm sure made sense to the people making the film. A big fight ensues between the Banners, ending when General Ross bombs them, apparently killing them both. The end. Or is it?
Well, we both know that Bruce couldn't have survived that blast.
Cut to Bruce Banner in the jungle in South America helping some folk out when some bandit types try to horn in on his action.
Está enojando. No le gustaría verme enojado.
Is this a bad film? I think bad is pushing it, but I will happily go with it tries but ends up deeply unsatisfying. Like watching that early cut of Spartacus where no one was Spartacus.
Well, I'm not Spartacus.
I'm certainly not Spartacus. I'm not Spartacus.
I'm not Spartacus.
Not me.
Never heard of him. Well, I'm not Spartacus. Never heard of him.
I think he's off sick. Ang Lee and company clearly have affection for the source material, aping its style to the point where it not only becomes distracting but highly annoying. Did somebody watch More American Graffiti and think to themselves, wow, this is not remotely annoying? We have a comic book movie that wants to look like a comic book with panels and fonts. I mean, look, Hulk has the same moveset as he does in the comics. But it's in a film with a script and a cast that try their best to totally downplay the comic book origins. Serious actors trying to make this feel more substantial than usual for a popcorn movie is not necessarily a bad way to do it, but in Hulk it doesn't quite work.
How unexpected.
It's mainly because some of the cast feel like they're in a completely different movie unrelated to a giant green splodge tearing up San Francisco. Meanwhile, Nick Nolte seems to have said, fuck it, I'ma give this all of my energy, a total of 100,000 Nolts.
Angry man is unsecure.
Everybody here has daddy issues, or in Betty's case, thaddy issues. Bruce Banner has a few mental blocks that Betty seems to think are the most important things ever, despite the fact that Bruce turns into a giant green roided out monster also possibly being a pressing issue to be dealt with. Finding a cure for Bruce's condition isn't quite the top priority you normally expect. General Ross thinks he has a cure, but that just seems to make Bruce angry, and, you wouldn't like him when he's angry. In days gone by, to achieve those overlapping scenes, split screens and wipes, you'd basically have to make the film on an optical printer. But with a computer, you can make a film that looks just like that without the image degradation. The tech to make Hulk a purely digital creation at this level would not have been possible, even just a few years earlier. Well, it might have been possible, but would it have been a good idea? I mean, he is no Jar Jar Binks. Taiwan-born director Ang Lee, no relation to Stan Lee, Lee Majors, Ali Ermey or Janet Lee, began his career in Asian cinema and moved to directing a variety of English-language films, though it was his breakout success of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that made him a sort of household name, at least as far as film directors go. He'd go on twice to win the Academy Award for Best Director for Brokeback Mountain and Life of Pi, the latter heavily featuring the work of dozens of VFX artists that the director would totally ignore in his acceptance speech.
This isn't funny.
Australian actor Eric Bana made his name as a sketch comedy star in Australia before moving into dramatic roles in local films.
Did they show a film?
Two.
Two?
Yeah. And they also had
Oh,
this
were they?
Twister. We saw Twister.
Oh,
and they had these
Was it on a
music
screen or a telly?
telly.
He gained the attention of Hollywood. Hulk would be Banner's breakthrough role in major productions.
She wanted me to change into that mindless Hulk. Why would he want that?
Jennifer Connelly was a child star who had made the jump to serious adult roles without going off the rails. Sam Elliot, who nobody ever introduces as Mission Impossible star Sam Elliot, but there you go, does gruff better than most. Josh Lucas as Talbot is in this film slipperier than the inside of a bottle of baby oil. And then there's Nick Nolte, playing an unhinged character for all it's worth, and real method. It's pretty much a good cast. If not wasted, certainly none of them are really used to their full potential. Hulk visually looks very nice, and the 2003 era CG mostly holds up. How does CG Hulk work for you? Is a cartoon Hulk any less goofy than a bodybuilder painted green with a terrible wig slapped on his head? Hulk here does more than just snarl and throw people. He's a green giant wrecking ball, a creature you'd only invite around to your house if you were perpetuating a massive insurance scam. Hulk can leapfrog across the desert, gaining tremendous speed. He can catch missiles, and bullets bounce off him like M&Ms fired off a rubber band.
We're dead.
Hulk co-creator Stan Lee and the TV Hulk himself, Lou Ferrigno, do make a brief cameo appearance. Danny Elfman provided a fairly decent score with yet another superhero theme, this one free of the bombast of many of his other scores. It is a film of very good parts that just function together about as well as topping up your car's oil with superglue just before a long road trip. With tepid critical notices, Hulk's stint in cinemas started off well enough, but like Darth Maul, just didn't have the legs to make it a mega smash.
I'm sorry.
It made enough money for work to begin on a sequel. But that film, when it was eventually released in 2008, would try to factory reset the franchise by more or less starting from scratch. So this movie does ultimately have to end up as a disappointing, middling effort that really goes nowhere since it's not followed up on. But it does have one particularly great cultural legacy: Hulk hands. These toys would play sound effects when connecting with objects and would hang around longer than any other aspect of this film. The next Hulk film would basically ignore the existence of this movie, with more or less a new creative team and completely different cast.
I'm sorry, son. You're an even more screwed up mess than I thought you'd be.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.